Hello YouTube, this is Callum from EnglishShooting, and I've got a bit of a sort of maintenance video today because I'm going to be fitting some high mounts on my Smith & Wesson 1522. So many of you will know that I already have the Vortex Viper 1x4 scope on my 1522, and I have this sort of high rise adjustable mount. You can see that it's actually adjustable for elevation right there. The problem is I've been doing some, or trying to be doing some different ammunition comparison videos, and basically I found that the shooting was all over the place. I had numerous flyers no matter what ammunition I was using. Now when that happens, you've got to think that it's down to the gun. I inspected the gun, it looked fine, the scope looked fine, the mount looked fine, and then I sort of gave it a little rattle and then noticed that there is a serious amount of play. You can see that I'm only just tapping that. If I try and keep the rifle as still as possible, you can see there's a lot of movement right there. Now even on a low recoil rifle like the Smith & Wesson 1522, the 2.2 long rifle caliber, that is still going to move about. If you put the rifle down, you can do a number of things. You play with the magnification, change anything, touch it, move it, put it anywhere, and your zero is going to move about. And obviously when you're trying to do accuracy and comparison between ammunition, that is not good. So the only thing to do is to get rid of this mount and put these on. Now these are, as you can see, are some Vortex Viper 30mm high mounts. They were the closest thing to the height of the mount that I already have on, and I thought it would be the best replacement. And of course it's Vortex, so it goes very well with the scope. So obviously the first thing to do is to remove the scope out of the mount. So there you go, sped up for you guys, because obviously you don't want to see me undo every single nut and bolt on this. So that's loosened. Obviously this isn't scrap, this mount. I'm actually probably going to sell it. So it's one of the benefits of using a jig like this. I've got loads of little pots and compartments where I can put all the loose bits, all the screws, so I'm going to keep them safe. Now one thing that I'm going to point out, this might be a bit weird, I don't know if other people do this, but you can actually see that on the actual mountings itself I have a bit of black electrical tape. If you look on the scope, you can see that it hasn't marked it in the slightest. You've got a bit of leakage of the actual adhesive, but that's going to clean right off. But I've got no scope mount marks on it, and I found that just simple sort of electrical tape, black electrical tape, does the job brilliantly. And make sure that your scope stays brand new. Now obviously you can look on the underside as well. Again, it's just a bit of glue residue on there, but the scope is absolutely spotless. So I don't know if anybody does that, but it certainly works for me, and I would advise it. So we've taken the scope off. I'm going to now put that somewhere safe. We don't need that for the moment. Obviously you want to make sure it goes somewhere where you're not going to drop it, it's not going to get bashed. Now obviously you then need to take the actual base of the mount off. Luckily on this one it is just 2 screws, and there you go, all off, ready for the new ones. So there we have it, the 2 mounts. Now this is a slightly different design, it goes in on the side. It's exactly the same as the Remington 700 ones that I've used, so I'm used to this one. What I'm going to do is get some black electrical tape and tape these up. Now obviously you need to take the new mounts apart, just take all the screws. Again, you definitely do not want to lose the screws for this, because obviously this is the one that we're going to be keeping. Now what I like to do with the electrical tape is not be too precise about it. Snip a piece that is roughly the right size, and just plonk it in. What I do want to make sure and take care and time with is that it's aligned properly, so that you get a good coverage. And obviously you don't want any creases or folds in it, you want it completely flat. There we go, it's pretty good, not bad for a first attempt. And the reason I said don't be so precise with it is because you can trim it. Just make sure you've got more than you need. And you can trim it right off. You're not going to be able to see that from the side. If you can, maybe just get a little sort of scalpel and just trim it. But that's ready to be put on. I'm going to do the other one and get that ready, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so I do have two mounts that are ready now. I am going to have to change the bit in my screwdriver because it's just a flat head there, just to get that loose. And again, this is completely rough at the moment. You just want to get a rough feel for where everything's going. It doesn't have to be too precise, you can change it, it's not permanent. So what I'm actually doing is I can see the outlines of where the previous scope was. In terms, if you haven't got something like that, or it's the first time putting your scope on, then what I tend to do is to try and keep everything as symmetrical as possible. That's not always possible, but just try your best. It's just more for aesthetics really. And also you want the scope to be supported evenly. It doesn't matter, you can see people that put two right next to each other right at the front. I just like to have everything even. You know, it's all about the physics really, and trying to distribute the weight and the pressures evenly throughout the scope. So that looks alright. Again, I need to mount it on my eye to see and actually mount the gun to see if that is correct. It might take some tweaking, but with it being sort of loose, I can move it forward, move it back. That might be more of where it was last time. So what I'm going to do is just finger tight these up. Now the scope is wedged in there fairly well. I'm going to be confident enough to pick the gun up and have a look at it. Obviously if you've got different types of mounts, then you're going to want to be very careful that the scope doesn't fall out. I'm just going to have a quick look, sort of in my normal shooting position. So that looks great to me. I can do sort of a top side, just looking over the top. It all looks good to me, it seems good. Again, I may get down the range and absolutely hate the setup, so that might be something at a later date that I adjust. For now, I just want to get those scope rings on, the scope on there, so I don't have to worry about it. All that sort of fine adjustment I could do down the range. It's no hassle to take a screwdriver set down there and just have a play. So again, I'm putting this electrical tape on the sort of other half of the mount. Again, just putting excess on there and then trimming it, making sure it's flat, and then offer it up. Just leave it there. Oh, it seems in place, may fall off. Do the same for the other side. Now this is just like doing your car wheel, doing that up if you've taken it off before. You want to do it sort of opposite corners, and little by little. There's absolutely no rush. You don't want to absolutely whack the screws straight in, the first one that you get on there. Just get them all sort of loosely in. So these are all sort of loosely done, everything's in place now. What I like to do is make sure that the top, the gap here, are even on both scopes. So again, I might want to go around and just play around with the tightness. For me, I like everything to look even. You know, the symmetry, it makes me feel better about the gun and shooting it. If things look off, then it might affect my shooting, because I might be thinking about how something looks rather than actually shooting. But as you can see here, I've sort of got the gap as even as possible. Maybe get that one a little looser. But as you can see, as I'm going round, I'm doing them alternatively. I'm not going round and just doing one really tight and the next one really tight. You just sort of take your time, do all the opposites, just even get to the point where you're doing like a quarter of a turn with each one. There's absolutely no rush. The optic on your gun is the most important thing, so you want it to be right, you want it to work correctly. You don't want any adverse pressures on your scope. Again, you may want to sell the scope in the future, you want it in good condition. If you just do one nut up really tight, it might make the mount itself tilt, and then you're going to probably have an issue. It might dent it in some weird way, but just take your time, do them alternatively, and you should have no problems whatsoever. Again, as I said, I'm going to have to go down the range and really shoot this first to know that it's in the right place, but it's just 2 screws, as you can see here on the side, to take it off. Most people will have this sort of screwdriver in the bag. I do most of the time, so as long as it's on tight, I'm going to get down the range, shoot it, see how I feel. But that's pretty much the complete process right there. Really hope that's helped, really hope it's given you an insight. It's been interesting to see me put my scope, it's not a new scope, but scope onto the new mounts. So as always, thank you very much for watching this video. Hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope to see you soon.